Okay, so, and that is certainly one of the main takeaways of this class. I mean, what is a transaction coordinator, right? It's somebody, maybe if you're not familiar, you're new to the business. It's somebody that not only handles your paperwork and stays on top of your clients and ensures that they're taken care of, but they also have typically a really good bird's eye view of what's going on with your business. And for some agents, it's sometimes something that they actually don't want necessarily to know what the hard numbers are, or they just have their head kind of out of that. They don't know what's predicted to close or what kind of commissions are projected for the next year. But as an agent, as a business owner, that's something that you should really be empowered by and get involved in. And by using Command and using the opportunity systems and staying on top of your deals and really engaging with the system, it really churns out some reports and some perspectives of like a really bird's eye view of what's likely to close for the year, how you can drive your business forward, what you might need to change. There's a lot of reporting and a lot of information that's built into the system that will empower you to be able to be more on top of your deals. And also, most importantly, I think, to give your clients better service. That's really what the opportunity section in Command can really help you do. That said, it does take some work, right? It takes some introspection, as we'll see. It takes some time from you to really sit down and think through, like, okay, what do my deals look like? What do my clients need at each step of the process? And just, you innately probably already know that if you've even done a few deals, but just codifying that and really putting it pen to paper can really help you work those details out if you need help doing that. And it can also empower you to stay on top of those details as you go through the transaction, so nothing is missed, people stay informed, and nothing falls through the cracks. Because as we know, miscommunication, lack of communication, and time are kind of what kill deals. And so by enabling all of these processes and really helping yourself get those checklists in order, you will save as many deals as possible and likely, I think, really see your projected closings number and your commissions go up year over year. So that little intro said, let's get into it. Now, as I mentioned, where we're really going to be working in today is the opportunities section in Command. So opportunities is really a unique thing. It's not only where and how you get paid, but it's also a sales pipeline. And I think that second thing is the thing that a lot of people skip over. They see it as a means to an end to put in their paperwork and make sure they get paid. And that's great. I mean, don't get me wrong, that is a perfect function for opportunities, but it's also a sales pipeline. Like, we really need to remember that and take advantage of that. So if you're new, when you log into Command, you will see this little handshake icon, and that is your opportunities icon here. So when you go to your opportunities icon, this is the default screen that you will see. You see your listings pipeline, your buyer pipeline, your lease pipeline. That's all great, right? We'll get to that. But also a lot of people don't really scroll much further past that. So I want to scroll down here. These are your deal ratios and month over month and year over year activity of different deals that you might have in your pipeline. So the only way that these numbers are going to be actually helpful or reflective of anything that's going on in your business is if you're feeding in accurate information and consistent information into this opportunities system, right? But it is helpful, obviously, if you're really looking at your business and learning how to optimize it. You'll see here a ratio of what type of opportunities you have. So what your listing ratio is, your buyers, your leases, and then also what your probable and potential closing or GCI is rather, at a glance. So for listings, probable is 1,800, potential is 18,000. So that's all dependent upon different percentages that you feed into the system or the system has on default, based upon the phase or stage that your deal, your opportunity is in at that point. So for example, the potential GCI, all of that might be at the Cultivate stage, and the probable, there might be one deal in like a contract phase in my Command, for example. So what Command is saying that probably you'll walk away with $1,800, but you have the potential, if everything goes perfectly right, to earn 18,000. So that's kind of a good bird's eye view of what is going on in your business. And I think it's important to remember like how great that is. I know as a person that was doing transaction coordination, doing all of these deals in a different CRM, I had to kind of recreate the wheel and create the different, hack into the system almost to be able to even get something similar to this, or be recording it manually on a spreadsheet with, different formulas and everything. And that's fine, but that's much more likely to make a mistake if you forget something, or it doesn't work perfectly. It takes a lot more effort up front to get that correct, those numbers correct, if you're doing it like manually in a workaround way. So Command is so powerful, guys. Like really, just look at this. If you feed into the system accurate information, it's going to give you accurate information back in a very simplistic way to read. It's very powerful. Like, I just don't want you to take this for granted. And it's something that you should really be engaging in if you're not already. So that's sort of what your opportunities dashboard looks like. You can also see what's closing this month. That's a really great thing too, right? Just to see where you're at. Maybe you want to project for May. You can also filter here the different opportunities that you want to see, maybe month over month. And so it's a really powerful system. Now, it gives you all these views in a different sections too, your potential and probable income for listings versus buyers versus leases. So it's great. Now, what we're going to do, oops, sorry, didn't mean to click that. We're going to create an opportunity. So we are going to ensure that our correct market center is clicked here, if you have the option to click more than one, that the listing or opportunity type rather is correct. So we'll do a listing opportunity this time. Make sure your owner, if you're on a team, is accurate. Client, we'll do Anna Gibbs. And opportunity name. And also tags, you can tag your opportunities, which is a great thing to do as well. Obviously your contact will be tagged, or your client rather will be tagged with certain things. But the opportunity tags are another way to narrow down your sources of business, to narrow down maybe, for example, I won this business because obviously Anna's tagged with certain things, but maybe I won this business because Anna partook in a seminar that I was holding, or she responded to a particular seller's email that I sent out. So that's another good way to keep track of your sources of business even more accurately. So I could say seller email blast March or something, anything that seems important to your business in terms of how you're trying to win business and convert business. This is a great way to do it, and to track that rather. So you can also, if estimated close date, et cetera, commission rate, we all hopefully know this by now. Now this is where things get interesting. So the opportunity phase. Now, one thing that I think a lot of people aren't taking advantage of in Command opportunities is the Cultivate phase, right? So we think of obviously, as I said, Command opportunities is sort of a means to an end to get paid. And so likely when you're putting in an opportunity, they're already like, okay, yeah, like I'll do business with you. I'll sign the listing agreement. I'll sign the buyer agreement. So you're kind of putting them in active maybe already, or an appointment, likely not Cultivate, right? So what I would encourage you to do is start to use the Cultivate phase. So let's say Anna is still not really sure that she wants to list with me, but she's mentioned that maybe she wants to sell her house. So she's not at an appointment yet, and she's not active. So let's put her in the Cultivate stage. Now the opportunity stage as well. So is she because we put her in this phase, these are the 3 different stages of this Cultivate phase. So you'll see if we put her in the appointment phase, these suddenly change. So we'll go through how to edit those and make those unique and customized. But for right now, the way I have my opportunities set up, within the cultivate phase, which are the larger overarching phases of a transaction, the different stages within those are watch, nurture, and hot. So let's nurture her, right? Because she already reached out to us perhaps and said, oh, you know, I got this email from you. It was really interesting. Like, I might be interested in hearing what my house might be worth. So she's definitely a nurture. So let's create that opportunity. Okay. So here, this is what we're all used to seeing, right? The different information, the details of the opportunity, which is great. Now, up here, you will see a different view where you can see different checklists, which we'll go through. So let's click out of this. And now let's go back to our sales pipeline, which we'll see in our listings, our cultivate stage. We have our opportunity here that we created, 123 Sesame Street with Anna Gibbs. So one thing I do want to point out too is whenever you see this little arrow, that means that nothing is clickable. But once you see this hand, everything is clickable. So that was just something that helped me in Command when you're trying to navigate. Just keep that in mind. Now, within this cultivate phase, we have these different stages. Now, all the different phases here, cultivate, appointment, active, under contract, and closed, were kind of a collaborative effort by over, I think it was like 2,000 something real estate agents who came together from all over the country to say, okay, Gary Keller and the labs team, these are sort of the 5 main universal phases of a real estate transaction. When you're cultivating a person, when you're going on an appointment, a listing appointment or a buyer appointment, when they're active, you know, you're actually viewing properties with them or their properties listed with you, they're under contract and they're closed, right? So that makes complete sense. And those you cannot change. What you can change is you can change the different stages within these universal phases. So within the cultivate phase, we have the watch stage, nurture stage, and hot stage. Those are defaulted by command. But say you don't like those terms or you just want to change them, you can go, and this goes for any of the different phases here. You can edit the stages by clicking that edit stage button. So I'll just go back in case you didn't see it. Edit stages right here. Personally, in this appointment phase, I actually don't like these stages, so we're gonna change those right now. For me, I actually maybe only have 2 stages within the appointment phase. So for me, I think that what's most important is scheduling and the appointment is complete, or appointment scheduling, appointment complete. You know, I don't need to hear like this scheduled stage is just sort of not very helpful for me. So I'm going to actually delete that stage completely. So don't be afraid, you know, don't be afraid to just go for it and delete things and change them to what makes sense for you and your business. So I'm going to edit also the name of this, appointment scheduling and prep. I'm very wordy, so I do apologize, but it helps me to add details. Then I also don't like this stage name either, kept, I would say, appointment complete. Now, in case you didn't notice, you might also see the probability percentage here within each of these stages. That's the probability that after you complete this stage, you'll get to the closing table with this opportunity. So as you progress, command will actually feed in details and information about the probability, and you can also analyze the different you know, close rates of your deals based upon which stages they get through. So you can go through and change and update these probability percentages to give yourself a more accurate number on what your projected GCI might be, your probable GCI. So these are the 2 stages that I like: appointment scheduling and preparation, and appointment complete. Now you can go back through all of these different phases and edit every single different stage to be exactly what you like. Now, how do we do this? Like, how do we get a handle on, okay, well, that's great. Like, I'm happy that I know that I can do that, but how do I know what's right for me? I encourage you, going through this process, create a notebook page, create a Google spreadsheet, create an Excel spreadsheet, whatever you like, create a note on your phone. think through to yourself, what are the stages within each of these phases of how I personally, as a real estate agent with my business, how do I walk through each of these deals? And not only that, but how would I ideally, what is the best case scenario? What are all of the different stages that I really want to hit with every single one of my clients to make sure that transaction is as amazing as possible for them, to make sure that it gets to the closing table? What are the best practices for me and my business, each stage within each of these main phases, to make sure that that deal closes and that the client is happy? So think through, like, don't take this lightly. This is a very important piece of your business and a very powerful tool that you can utilize if you take the time to think about what are each of these phases. So for me, when I am on an setting up an appointment, the really important thing is that scheduling and preparation, right? And then the second important thing is the follow-up after I have that appointment to ensure that that deal goes active. So within appointment and preparation, of course, that's the overarching stage. But within that, there might be other different details that you want to ensure, different tasks that you want to make sure you complete, whether that's an email, whether that's a different materials that you're sending your seller, like a CMA or something. Now, after the appointment is complete, of course, there's also a variety of different tasks that you might have to complete to follow up with that seller accurately and appropriately to ensure that you get to that active stage. So, phase rather. So within each stage, which are the more overarching different tasks with it, or, kind of stages within each phase, you have tasks, and Command knows that. So they allow you to create checklists and edit checklists here. So you can go to this checklist and you can edit each one of these items, add an item, you can reorder items. These are items that I've already created. And the great thing is you can also set custom due dates for each one of these tasks. And now, of course, those due dates change depending on, obviously, when the opportunity is in which stage, it's time dependent. So maybe I see that I'm in this appointment and scheduling preparation stage with this opportunity. So maybe I know that in a week, they'll be ready for an email. Then by best practices, I know 2 days after that, I should call the seller. Then maybe 24 hours after that, I know that I have to set up the listing appointment. So you can just collect, like, as time goes by and as you're in this stage with this opportunity, set those due dates for yourself so that they will come up in your dashboard as tasks that you need to complete. And as I have said before, your dashboard is basically your job as an agent. If you feed into Command well between the opportunity tasks and maybe tasks you have in your contacts for follow-ups, if you just appeal to your dashboard task list by feeding into it well, you will be doing your job. So in that, obviously, you have the opportunities to create those task lists within each phase and stage. So let's go through how to create this checklist. Let's go back to our little opportunity that we had created. Now you'll see here 0 of 0. And what that means is that there is no checklist created for this stage within this phase. So we want to edit that, and maybe we want to make sure that we have a checklist in the nurture stage. So we'll edit the stages. Now these are the stages we have. We can edit their name as we saw, but we can also add checklist items by clicking this little hyperlink and simply add an item. So within the nurture stage of the cultivate phase, what do you think are some different items that we might have by nurturing them? Maybe we want to put them on a smart plan. So put on bi-monthly neighborhood nurture. That could be one thing that we do in the cultivate phase. Another thing could be, within that bi-monthly neighborhood nurture, maybe there's another smart plan that we want to put them on. So put on, cultivate smart plan. You can even create smart plans, custom smart plans to appeal to this particular stage. So do you see now kind of how all the dots are connecting between your dashboard and the task list and tags and the smart plans and the opportunities? It all connects and it's all this big system. And ideally you really approach it that way. But when you're just looking at this one section, the opportunity section, the phases and stages, this is just an opportunity to think through your process. And also it'll inspire you, like as it just inspired me to maybe create a smart plan for this stage and phase. So as you go through each of these different applets, it'll hopefully inspire you to dig in a little bit deeper and get even more involved in your command to make sure that your business is running as smoothly and almost as effortlessly and optimally as possible. So put on Cultivate Smart Plan. And for you, if you're not creating custom smart plans, what that might just look like is a phone call, like call. So we could just say call potential seller. And you can add more detail, you know, if you want to keep that mental note, like call potential seller, discuss, you know, CMA or property value. So I would say maybe like tops like 6 different items within each stage. Don't drive yourself crazy, just have these notes and like think of the different checklists within each stage as a mental note and a mental checklist that's also going to translate into your actual checklist if you set due dates for that. So we can save. So now we have a checklist for these. Now we can also create a checklist for the hot stage if we want to even have that stage. If you don't like this stage, if it doesn't make sense to you, you can just delete it. You know, it's really what appeals to you as a business person, as somebody that knows their business best, and you can just delete. These are just suggestions by command. They're not something you have to stick by and kind of work your business around. You can edit them at your own will. So I don't even like this hot because to me, nurture, when you're nurturing them, you know, hopefully they just move right into the appointment stage, right? So I don't, me personally, you might feel differently. I don't necessarily see the point of the hot stage, so I'm just going to delete that. It's more, sometimes, you know, you might find yourself just having even one stage and a bunch of checklist items within that stage. So it's kind of, again, really up to you and what your business looks like. Now you can add a different stage, you can add a bunch of stages. It's really, again, it's kind of how you want to orient yourself. So Anna is now in the nurture stage. And so say we accomplished all of these checklist items, everything was done, you know, we set the due dates and we said, okay, we're going to call her, you know, say we called her Saturday and that was finished. And now we close and now she needs to be moved over to the next phase, or yes, phase, which is the active or appointment phase rather. So now, and we'll see her opportunity in the next phase, the appointment phase. And here there was already a checklist I had created for different items, but now we might have to set different due dates, right? So send out expectation email. So say we're setting up that appointment, so we need to send out an email that says, okay, you know, if we are going to have this listing appointment, here is what I might need to have from you to do proper CMA, to have all the information for any paperwork that I might be bringing. So you might want to make sure you send out that expectation email on Wednesday. Then you need to call them within 24 hours of receipt of that email. So you set the due date for Thursday. Then you coordinate the schedule on that phone call, maybe the same thing. Schedule it for Thursday again. And then you confirm the listing appointment 24 hours before. So say the listing appointment's set for next week on Wednesday, we confirm it on Tuesday. And that's as simple as that. It maybe will take you 5 minutes just to set those due dates and coordinate everything. And now you will have those tasks in your task list. And that's amazing, right? You can go through and you can click that you've completed these and know that you're on top of your game in terms of following up with everybody. You know, all of your ducks are in a row. You know, your seller is getting that level of attention that they deserve. And this is really what a transaction coordinator would be doing for you, you know, maybe in their own system or in command, if they're just in command. But now command is it's really so easy to use. You are your own transaction coordinator. Or if you are a transaction coordinator, take advantage of these tools as well, to ensure that the clients for your team, for your business, are being taken care of, and everything is complete. So you can close this. So let's say again, Anna completed all of these items. Great. So now the appointment has been completed, and we need to create a new checklist. Now, ideally, you're not creating these checklists as you go. Maybe you are. Maybe that's the way you like to work. But ideally, you actually set them up before you move your opportunities through these phases and stages, so that you're prepared with, again, like, what is the best practice for my business? So you're not kind of making it up as you go. So you, once the appointment is complete, maybe we just need to do a follow-up call, right? And make sure that how did you feel about the appointment? How did you feel about my evaluation? Of course, ideally, you know, you get paperwork signed maybe on the appointment, but even if you do, you still need to follow up and talk about the next phase of their transaction. So you can set the due date right from here if you would like for this opportunity, or you can just save this. Now, what you just saw also, if you're setting due date, okay, you can also create custom options. So what you just saw is when I edited I added the checklist within this opportunity card. So that was a custom, actually, checklist item because I was editing it right from the opportunity card. Now, if I edit it from up here, that's where I can add the more universal, the checklist items that are going to stay for each opportunity. So that's helpful, right? When you need to create something that's unique to that opportunity, because every opportunity is different. And as somebody that's working in command, ideally, and using those checklists is something that you're really going by in terms of running your business, you may need to add ad hoc items to those checklists depending upon the building, depending on the client, the home rather. So you know, each opportunity is different, and you might have to add different checklist items. But to create those checklist items on a whole for all the opportunities that might go through this stage, you would edit it from this view, the edit appointment stages view. And then you might add an item. So follow up with seller. And then another, what else might you have to do when an appointment, after your listing appointment? You might need to coordinate, you know, timeline with the seller. So maybe you didn't discuss in the appointment exactly when their home is going to be ready for sale, or when they're going to, within their schedule, they'll be able to allow a photographer in or something like that. So you can coordinate timeline, or maybe you even want to introduce them to your transaction coordinator at this point, if you haven't already, or to other members of your team that might be handling their listing. So you might want to do a team introduction. Anything that you know in your business is a best practice, that's what should be going on these checklists. Okay. So I hope that makes sense, and you can just go do the same thing throughout each of these different phases. In the active phase, you'll see staging, showing, negotiations, and legacy. Legacy is when other opportunities are brought in from like dot loop or something. So you might just want to delete that completely. You might not even, or you might want to rename it and just own it for something of your own. So like things, whatever you want to call it, like previously closed or something like that. But you can just delete all of these even and start fresh, and completely recreate what your phases and stages are, are going to look like, and the checklists within each stage. So maybe staging is a little bit of a word misnomer for you. Maybe when you bring an opportunity active, what that means is like timeline coordination, like we were just talking about in the appointment. Maybe you want to do that in this phase. Then you're in the showing phase, which makes sense. Maybe this is just the listing stage. Sorry, it's very difficult to not say mix up stage and phase. Stage. Then obviously negotiations make sense, but maybe you want to call that taking offers or something. And then after active, you want to say offer submission or offer negotiation. So you can really just do whatever you feel is right for your business. Then as an overview of under contract, We have escrow here, which is listed, inspections, appraisal, and financing. Maybe you don't go through the escrow process. Maybe it really is just negotiations. Maybe you want to have that in the under contract phase for some reason, or maybe you want to just put inspections first, or just contracts out. Maybe you just want contracts out as the only stage here, and then mortgaging or something. Like it's really up to you how you want to orient this. Now closed. The closed phase has closed and legacy. So you might want to say closed or closing, and then maybe you want to say like homeowner or client follow-up or client legacy, just as a checklist to remind yourself to continually reach out to that person and to put them maybe on a different smart plan, or to, you know, send them a welcome home letter, or to send them a thank you letter. All those different things can go on this under this stage and under that checklist. So it's really the A to Z of your business. And the best approach, I think, because it's a little bit hard to view like each kind of checklist and each phase and stage on the whole. So what I would encourage you to do is go back to that notebook paper, go back to that spreadsheet, and really type out like what are the phases here. So cultivate, appointment, active, under contract, and close. And then under those, what stages do you want? And what within those stages do you need to accomplish? What are the most important things? And write those out with perhaps even timelines. So maybe, you know, within 24 hours after a listing going active, you send your client the link, you send them a bunch of different paperwork. Maybe you send them like all the links to all the websites where their listing is up. Maybe you send them your marketing plan. So what are the things that you do for your business that need to be on that checklist with under that stage? And what are the timelines associated with that for best practices to make sure that your business is running at A+ speed and efficiency? So yes, that requires a little bit of time and thought, but it's well worth it if you can apply that then to the opportunity section here. Map all these checklists out and know when you're going through the opportunity that you're going to be setting those due dates, and you're going to be checking those due dates in your task list. I think that's, I mean, I really encourage you guys to take advantage of this. I think it's pretty simple. The only thing that I want to make sure you don't get caught up on is when you're editing the stages, always edit from here. Do not edit from the actual opportunity card unless you're editing a checklist item that's specific to that opportunity, if that makes sense. So we can edit the checklist right from here for this particular opportunity up here. So as you'll see, it says checklist for 123 Sesame Street. You can add custom items with a custom due date. Then you can even hide completed items that you don't want to see. You can go through each for this opportunity. You can set custom checklists that you want. Now, if you want to edit the checklist on the whole, you go to edit stages and then the checklist within the stage. So that's the only difference that I want you to keep in mind. And that is important to not lose track of the different checklists that you have going. But it is a great feature, obviously, as we said, for something that's ad hoc that comes up with a certain opportunity, or maybe it's just a really unique case and they need a completely different checklist for each stage. So that's a great feature. So I want to just open it up for questions. If you have any questions, let me know. If you thought this was helpful, or if you thought it maybe changed your perspective on how to use opportunities a little bit differently, let me know. Yeah, please feel free to engage. Very helpful. Thanks, Adam. I appreciate it. I know that it takes work, but it is worth it. And you have all these things in your head of what the different stages in your mind are as a real estate agent that is experienced. But just put pen to paper and put those into practice. Yeah, Abe, ask away. Let's see if I can unmute you. I will. Abe, you're unmuted if you want to ask a question.
1 second.
Oh,
Can I
there you
ask
go.
that? Hello?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Yeah. I know I came in late. Can I ask you a question even if I came in late?
Yes,
You
sure, of
may.
course.
Um, so when I go into edit stages,
Yep.
where's the list?
Sure. So when you hit edit stages, it's this little hyperlink here. It's not very obvious, but you can edit the checklist for each stage right just by clicking that button. And you can
I
go
see.
through, and normally this is actually blank. There's no, I added these
Got it.
checklist items, and you just click add item, and then you can delete it through here or edit it as well.
Mhm. So the ideal should be when I go to edit stages from the top, not from this
Right.
specific.
Exactly. So when you're editing for all of the different deals that you ever want to put through this whole process, that's where you go. You go to the main edit stages button. If you want to edit a specific checklist for a specific opportunity for some reason, like say this opportunity, they needed their house painted and I wanted to keep track of that for some reason, I could add a particular ad hoc like checklist item, like get organized painters or something, and set a due date. And that would only be on this checklist for this opportunity.
Got it. Is there a template we can like edit or modify, or we
Yeah,
can?
so I think that's like the jackpot, right? I've had so many different people ask, like, is there a template for everything that I could ever want to do for a transaction? And that is really comes with your experience. I think that that is your value add as a real estate agent, almost like to know the different phases and stages that you have in your business that you need to complete for your particular business, because everybody's business is different and the regions they work with are different, and the mortgage brokers and attorneys that they use are different and sometimes require different things. So that all breaks down into really how you're going to map out your phase, your stages, and your checklists. In terms of like a broad spectrum, I mean, I guess really command kind of gives you that outline in terms of what they're prompting you to have as stages. And within those stages, the checklists kind of come with your own experience. I'll certainly look into maybe working with an agent and putting a template together for different checklist items or inspirations.
That would be awesome.
And I do think that would be helpful for a lot of people. But yeah, I would also just encourage you to take a stab at, your experience, take a stab at putting down pen to paper, like within the stage, what do I normally do? Or what do I want to do better? And how do I really want to ensure that these deals go to close?
Mhm. So for some reason I lost it. So I go into opportunities, and we go
Mm-hmm.
in to buyers or listing to go into in the stage, and then it's in the top right corner said edit stages.
Mm-hmm.
Got it.
Adam, you have a question? You can come off mute and ask away.
Hi.
Hey.
So when you are adding something to the checklist for a specific opportunity,
Yeah.
does that only go in under a certain phase, or does that specific, checklist item follow the opportunity throughout each phase?
That's a great question. No, it's just for that particular checklist. So it's really like local. It's just localized to that opportunity within this checklist in this phase and stage.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah. Awesome. I'm glad that you guys are engaging with this. I really think that it's an underutilized portion of Command that can really change the way you do business and really help leverage any time that people usually leverage into having a transaction coordinator, which is amazing. If you're handling tons and tons of deals, it's leverage you might need. But as single agents, by using this tool, you can really help yourself leverage and make sure your clients are being attended to, because that's the most important thing, right?
This is very helpful. Thank you so much.
Good. You're so welcome. If you have any follow-up questions, you can feel free to email me. I'm happy to respond to your emails. I'll leave my email down in the chat. And if you have any other questions, please let me know. Otherwise, I really appreciate your time, everybody, and have a great day.
Corinne, this is
Yeah.
Barry.
Hi, Barry. Yeah.
Hey, yeah, and this is going back probably to even something more basic, but when I get a a lead in for a buyer, let's say, and I go in and I put them into contacts, then I put them, I go then and create an initial opportunity
Yeah.
for them. So it'll be, say, Joe Blow buyer.
Mm-hmm.
And so he's basically in cultivating.
Yeah.
And
Yes. Mm-hmm.
then until you can take it to the next level, because they don't know what they want to see. So until you give them a title, somebody says, well, you have to give them a property, assign a property to get into all the documents. And
Well, yeah, I understand what you're saying. So you don't have to give them a title. It depends on, like, if the cultivate phase is really for people that haven't agreed to like necessarily work with you specifically, I think. So they're really people that are just sort of ethereal, like they don't really know, like they're kind of on your radar. Maybe they've expressed some interest, but they haven't expressed interest enough for you to be able to even want to send out contracts or disclosures or anything like that.
Right. And then when you get to a point, when do you, because let's say you're showing them, 6 properties, tomorrow. And to get them in, so do you wait and just pick one that they are most interested in? And then that could change. They could say, well, I don't want that house. I don't want A, I want B.
Yeah, well, if you're showing them
change
property,
that all out, correct?
yeah, if you're showing them property, they should be at the appointment or active phase. Because, just thinking through the transaction, like if you're going out, if you're spending that time, you had that conversation with them of their buy, want, need, you're showing them properties, they're an active client, or they're at least an appointment client, right?
Okay, and all the task bars are still the same for buyers as they are with listers.
Yes. So not all the stages. I don't think that they're the same for
Well, I mean,
buyers.
they have the opportunity to create different task bars.
Yes, you can create different stages and within for buyers and for sellers. So they can be completely different. So your listing stages can be completely different than your buyer stages.
So when you're getting somebody, let's say you're just meetings, you got somebody new and you're taking them out, how do you then pull down the agency disclosure to send to them when you need to have them in a file?
Well, that is a different part of opportunities. That's more in your document section. So here is more of your phases and stages. And now let's say, we're going through, where was the listing I created? I think it was over here.
But that's on a listing, but I mean, that's going to be a lot more direct in setting up a listing.
Yeah, but a buyer is the same, right?
Over. You're going to have, you're going to have buyers coming in every day, hopefully.
You can pull in documents by just going, you pick your checklist type, obviously, and you pull in the documents, and it doesn't actually matter what phase or stage that they're in, and it doesn't control whether or not you can create those documents for them. But it's important for you, in just keeping track of business. And that's the whole point of, going over phases and stages and your checklists, to keep track of what phase and what stage that they're in. So you can edit their phase and stage by going to their details and their opportunity. But just to pull in documents, you can just go to the documents tab within the opportunity and pull in documents as you would normally.
Right, and start a transaction. But I mean, so just for the initial buyer to take them out on the first time, you're going to have that agency disclosure.
Yeah, of course. Yes, exactly.
So that whole file then gets set up for Joe Blow. And okay.
Yeah. So let's do quickly. We'll do an opportunity for a buyer, and hopefully this will help. So let's say Anna's always my buyers and sellers. Anna Gibbs, buyer. We don't know what property she wants. We just know she's a buyer. Maybe we know she wants to buy in Woodstock, New York. So we'll put Woodstock.
And custom tags is whatever you want to put there.
Yep. Yeah.
Where you got them from, or
exactly.
Okay.
Yeah, custom tags are helpful because obviously the client here has tags perhaps associated with them, but you can add tags to the opportunity itself, which might be different. which might
From a
be
friend
where
or whatever.
you
Okay.
got them and or found them or how they came to you. So here you can set the opportunity phase and stage right off the bat. So say, you are sending out that agency disclosure, the buyer you had a conversation with them, they do want you to set up appointments. So say that you put them at the appointment phase, and maybe you're scheduling with them, or whatever opportunity stage you create, and you create that.
What's the idea of putting in the commission rate? Oh, it's probably when you're signing buyer's agreements and we have a commission rate over the rate that is on the listing.
Yes, yeah. When you sign a buyer agreement, you have to complete that commission portion anyway, and it's also just for projections in your opportunities view. When you're looking at projected closing or GCI, that's where it'll pull from. If you fill in what the budget is, or see if there's a budget here, then it'll take that budget with the commission rate and create your projected GCI.
So you
that's
basically would assume, and as a default, say 3%, knowing that, assuming everything's going to be a co-broke.
Right, exactly. And that might change. Obviously, when you go through
that could change, and then that would be adjusted.
Exactly. And the purpose of that at the beginning phases and stages to complete the budget and the commission rate is only so Command can give you kind of an overview sense of what your GCI could be, your potential GCI. And that's where that number comes from these numbers. So it's not hard and fast. It's not your probable GCI, it's your potential. And once you get into the different phases and stages, and you can update, like obviously when you get to the contract phase, you have a better sense of those numbers. Those become your probable GCI numbers. And then the potential GCI is just from all the other phases and stages, your opportunities in like the Cultivate or the appointment phase and stage. So that they get finer and finer tuned as you go along, as long as you're updating accordingly, essentially. Right. So here Anna is in, obviously we put her in this phase and stage of the appointment phase and the scheduling phase, but you can still pull in those documents like a buyer disclosure or the exclusive right to rent the buyer here, and send those out. Now, where you do want, and these are just your documents. Your documents are connected to, but not directly related to the detail or the phases and stages that the opportunity you're in. Hopefully, obviously, everything is moving in tandem, right? So a consultation with the documents for a consultation would coordinate maybe with the phase and stage of that. So the appointment phase and stage. The under contract would coordinate with the active phase and stage checklists, and then the closed obviously would coordinate with the closed phase and stage checklist. So hopefully you're moving that opportunity through the phases and stages accordingly and completing the documentation alongside that. That's kind of like the ideal, but one is not necessarily dependent on another, which is why, I'm sure a lot of you can look at your opportunities right now and see that your opportunities, the phases and stages are kind of all over the place, even if you have all your closed paperwork done. So they're not like dependent on one another, but ideally you would be doing them in tandem so that you are, perhaps putting in a checklist in that stage for, completing your paperwork. And so you come into the documents section and you complete that paperwork. You go into DocuSign, you complete it. And once they sign, maybe the exclusive right to represent, you move them into a different phase and stage. So it's all coordinated, but it's not necessarily like automated and dependent upon one another, if that makes sense.
Mm-hmm. Okay, no, thank you. Oh, yeah.
But I know there's a lot, right? But that's the opportunity I think here, is that there's a lot to consider, and there's a lot to put into practice.
No, it is. It's, as you said, it is an opportunity, which is a pun.
Yeah, and it's just it's a great way to get a sense of really almost, honestly, it's kind of just a nudge to codify your best practices of your business. Mm-hmm. And to make sure that those are written down, especially if you ever do get a real not a real transaction, but another person that you're leveraging some work to, so they know exactly what the best practices are. And even if you set that up already in opportunities and you're finding a lot of success, then perhaps you have the budget to leverage that business into having some help. All of those structures are already created in opportunities, and they can just follow suit and really run your business almost from there. So it's just it's a great thing to do. It's almost like your operations manual, but just in checklist form. All right. So I think, you know, it's a lot to take in. I appreciate that. But I would highly suggest that you start writing down different stages and checklists for those stages and see how they work. See little experiment, and maybe even you want to start with one phase at a time and just go from there. That's absolutely fine.
Corinne, were you recorded today?
Yes, I was recording.
Okay, great.
It'll be on our YouTube channel today, I'm sure.
Great, thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome. All right, well, thank you everybody. Again, if you have any questions, I'll also type in my cell phone number if you want to text me or call me. And then my email address is also in there. Okay, thanks, Arlene. All right, thanks everybody.
Thank you very much.
Take care. Have a good one.
Thank you.
Thanks.
All right, bye.